When we compare the outcomes of the black and white testers side by side, what's most striking is the direct effect of race on the outcomes of these young men. A black applicant with no criminal background received callbacks or job offers at about half the rate of an equally qualified white applicant. But the most surprising finding was really related to blacks with no criminal background relative to whites with a felony conviction. We find that a white applicant with a felony conviction fared just as well, if not better, relative to a black applicant with a clean record. This suggests that being black in America today is essentially like having a felony conviction in terms of one's chances of finding employment.
My job is to repeat myself, evidently. I just talked about the topic of race bias in hiring and employment on my YouTube channel. You just witnessed the late, great sociologist, Dr. Devah Pager, describe some of her findings. She conducted studies for her doctorate dissertation called The Mark of a Criminal Record, where she examined the effects of incarceration on employment rates for black and white people seeking jobs. Her findings showed that black people without a criminal record fared no better and perhaps worse than did white people with criminal records. Furthermore, consider her experiment where she sent people 2 by 2, one black and one white, to apply for 340 job ads in New York City. She gave each pair fake resumes with identical qualifications. She also gave them scripts so that the applicants said the same things when handing in their applications. She even dressed them alike. She found that black applicants got half the callbacks that white applicants got with the same credentials. Additionally, in 2004, economists studied how race, ethnicity, and racism affects hiring decisions. They wondered, are Emily and Greg more employable than Lakeisha and Jamal? Names and quality were randomly assigned to resumes, and they were sent to over 1,300 employment ads in Chicago and Boston. Their results revealed statistically significant differences in the number of callbacks each resume received based on whether the name sounded white or black. Researchers found that white names had a 9.65% chance of receiving a callback, while the names of their black counterparts had a 6.45% chance. Put in other words, these results imply that a white applicant should expect on average 1 callback for every 10 ads he or she applies to. On the other hand, a black applicant would need to apply to about 15 different ads to receive the same result. Results were nearly identical in both cities, by the way. So, when faced with observably similar African American or white applicants, do employers favor the white ones? Yes. Oh, and also, I only gave you first names when saying the title of the study earlier. The randomly assigned names were Emily Walsh, Greg Baker, Lakeisha Washington, and Jamal Jones. Some will say that names may not just indicate race, but class as well. So it may not be that employers are racist, just classist. For example, in this study, the name most commonly and correctly judged as a black-sounding name was Deshaun. This name was also most commonly given by black mothers with a high school degree or less. Names most commonly given by black mothers with a college education, such as Jalen, were much less likely to be associated as a black-sounding name. A popular black name from this same study based on birth records was Bria, but it was difficult for survey respondents to correctly identify that name racially. Bria, apparently, isn't a strong enough signal of blackness. Okay, a study from 2015 led by a University of Missouri professor of public affairs compared just 4 names. 2 white-sounding ones, 1 male, 1 female, and 2 black-sounding ones, 1 male and 1 female, which showed no discrimination among employers and was widely cited by the media like it was a sign of positive racial progress or something. So in order to signal race, they used the last names of Washington and Jefferson. And according to U.S. Census data, a majority of people in this country who have these last names are black. But as you can imagine, it's harder to discern race through last names or surnames than a given name. Besides, the first names this study chose to identify as black were Chloe and Ryan. Back to Devah Pager. If you've noticed that some of these experiments are from a decade or 2 ago, then you should know that the same sociologist and her peoples published a meta-analysis including every field experiment on hiring since the first ones were completed in the 1980s. Across 24 studies, black applicants were called back 36% less than white applicants with the same qualifications. Additionally, not a single study found a reliable anti-white bias. The rate of discrimination is the same as it was in the 1980s. Before I close, if you're wondering, is this discrimination towards black people intentional? Does this mean that hiring managers are racist? Well, There was a study from 2011 that suggested it's not that recruiters themselves necessarily have a racial bias. Instead, they fear some of their customers do. I mean, I got a white sounding name. For Rebel HQ, I'm Jeff Wiggins. My architect knows Japanese. For more from the Young Turks, stay right here. If you want to see content from yours truly, click on the hashtag below. I can also be found on all socials at He Gon' Be Alright. Thanks for watching.